Thing beautiful that I like to remember. She said, no matter what happens, it's all right. Live by that. Have that kind of peace that's unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds. And how do we have that? How do we see the crashing worlds coming around us and maintain that peace? It's not so easy, but we can do it if God is our companion, if God is with us. And how do we make that happen? Well, this reading tells us some very good things. Keep your mind here. Keep your attention elevated. Keep your awareness elevated. Life is a growth of consciousness, an expansion of consciousness. I heard bells when I said that. This reading today, I was reading it, and it says, God is as much with us now as he will ever be. And I thought, oh no, this is as good as it gets. That's really scary. But then it goes on and says, we need to come to him. And that process of coming is a matter of transforming our self-perception. We need to remember who we are. We are like someone who's been hit over the head and has amnesia. We don't remember. There's a beautiful movie, and it came from a beautiful book called Random Harvest. And Swami loved this movie, and he loved the book too. And it's all about a war veteran who suffered from amnesia. And because he couldn't remember his past life, he developed a whole new life. He had a beautiful wife and a child. He was developing his own career, and then he went on a little business trip, and he got hit on the head again. And he remembered his first life, but he always knew something was missing. Where's the love of my heart? But he couldn't remember his wife and his family, and he went through many years like this. There's something he was missing, and that's like all of us. We are missing our source. We've gotten too far away from our source. And just to finish up poor little Random Harvest, he did find his wife, brilliant woman that she was. While he didn't remember her, she became his secretary, his faithful companion, secretary, helped him 10 years, 15 years, something like that. And he finally, at the end of the movie, remembered and became integrated again. And that's what will happen to us. Yoga means union. It's that integration of the higher self and the lower self, of all these many, many lives that we have passed through. Yogananda tells us that it takes 5 to 8 million lives just to reach to the human level. You ever wonder why we're all so different? Well, I spent 2,000 lives being a turtle, and somebody else didn't. So we don't have a lot in common sometimes. These are the sorts of musings that the devotee goes through. But then we reach the human level, and then we can really rack up some lives, because then we have developed an ego, a sense of self. I am important. that sense of survival and wanting all kinds of things. Self-determination. We can choose. We have a modicum of free will. We get to choose the light or the dark. Life after life after life. We can just play in this spectrum of consciousness. We can explore depravity. We can explore sainthood. We can do anything we want. We are God's children, and He has given us that freedom to explore. But always, like that man with amnesia, no matter how far out into this playground of consciousness we go, there's always that feeling of, yes, I just won the lottery and I made $2 billion, but you know what? I still have the same stomach ache, and my heart aches for fulfillment. We are looking for something always, and we can't find it anywhere in this world. We can only find it inside. And so, as Yogananda said, I wanted to read this quote, self-realization is the knowing in all parts of body, mind, and soul that you are now in the possession of the kingdom of heaven, that you need not pray that it come to you, that God's omnipresence is your omnipresence, and that all you need to do is improve your knowing. All we need to do is pray and meditate and call to God. God is only a prayer away. He is our own selves. Yogananda said that, the scriptures of India say that God wanted to enjoy himself through many. And so he created this universe. And all of us as children were born out into this vast playground to enjoy ourselves. And I have to say, when I see God, I want to talk to him about that, because it's not always all that fun. But Yogananda also said that God doesn't come to most people because he knows they would only want to argue with him. But we are that. We are like fragments of a diamond or facets of a diamond. We are parts of God, little drops of consciousness, little bits of light. And our journey, as the Festival of Light so beautifully says, is passage through dim corridors of waking consciousness to emerge at last into perfect light, into perfect joy. That is the destiny of each one of us. And we can continue to play out in the playground as long as we like. But eventually, we demand to understand. We demand to end our suffering. We demand to be reunited with that source. And when we get serious, when we really say, my heart has been broken too many times, or my body has been broken too many times, I want freedom from the pain of this universe, this playground. It's not all it's cracked up to be. As Master said, behind every rose, or under every rose bush of pleasure hides a rattlesnake of pain. Why be there anymore? We can go within. We can find that freedom, that pain-free state, that joy, that remembrance. Samadhi is, that final ecstasy is remembering. It's smriti, remembrance of where we came from and who we really are. Let's redouble our efforts. Let's keep our minds focused at the spiritual eye. Let's call on God in every situation. Have the thoughts running through our minds a constant prayer, asking God to be with us. What do I do in this traffic jam? What do I do with this person who's yelling at me? Whatever it is, how do I give more God into every situation in my life? And the more we do that, the more we are part of that source, the more we are drawn into it. Give your heart to God more and more. Don't hide anything from Him. Don't keep anything away. Open yourself more and more, and that is where the joy is. May you feel more and more of His joy.
Well, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I wanted to begin with a song that we, again, rarely hear. We seem to be doing the rarely hear concept today. This is typically sung only at weddings, and it's sort of the Swami took compassion on the father of the bride, since the bride is the big deal in the wedding. He's sort of the one left out, and so the father gets a chance, should he dare to take the chance, he gets the chance to sing this song in an Ananda wedding, essentially offering his daughter to God, saying, I've done my part in this, acting as your representative, but now I'm offering this child into your hands. Father, I place my daughter's hand firmly in thine for thy keeping. Bless her and keep her all her days, as in thy name I have always, dear Lord, always sought to do. I don't know if there's a dad out there who can get through that song in a wedding without completely losing it. I think I can think of one or two, but it takes highly transcendent consciousness to be able to really go through that song. This topic, the eternal now, and the Bible reading in particular are very profound, because we live in a universe of time, and as Nirmala was pointing out, we have a lot of time if we choose to take advantage of it, you might say. If we choose to dive into it, it's our universe, it's our canvas to paint on, it's our world to play with. I asked the internet an interesting question this morning for the first time ever. I don't know if this question has ever occurred to you, but what is the lifespan of an atom? Did you ever think of that? How long does the universe last? It's kind of an odd question, and science can't really answer it right now, because science can't quite figure out what is dark energy, what is dark matter. They sound sort of scary, frankly, but we understand like 4% of the universe, with the mass that is 4% of the universe. The other 96%, there be griffins out there. We might as well draw the map and say, here be griffins. We don't know about that part over there, but we know about this 4%. But anyway, the answers that I got back, of course, science can't say what is the lifespan of an atom because we haven't been around for a few billion years to watch atoms decay, other than the radioactive ones, which go back into stable ones. But you get down to the stable ones, the really, really stable ones. I think beryllium is the winner of the prize. And they speculate that the lifespan of a beryllium atom is 10 to the 25th power years. Now that is greater than the lifespan of the entire universe, so they think, which basically means that it lasts forever, except that there is no forever in years, in finite terms. Anyway, it's a very odd question, and what it tells me is that there is an awful lot of binding power to all this. You think of the force that holds an atom together, and it holds it together for, I don't even know how many, 10 to the 25th power, octillion years or something? It's a lot of years. It's really a long, long time. Swami used to tell this story. He said, the amount of time that it takes from the time that a soul goes forth into the world, like the little bird in the story in the Festival of Light, until the time that it comes back to realize God. It's like a big lake, like say Lake Tahoe, I think was the example he used. And a bird comes once every 5,000 years and takes one drop out of the lake and goes away with the drop. And there's no evaporation in this particular example. So it's just, every 5,000 years comes a drop. How long is it going to take the bird to empty the lake? Well, it's going to be a little while. It's going to be longer than lunch today. Anyway, but here's the interesting thing. There's no time. Time is an illusion. And so, yes, the drama can play out and out and out, and the involved nuances of it, oh my Lord. And I can say that sitting on an airplane for 24 hours, sometimes you start to think, this eternal now, how long is it really going to last? I can tell you that it takes 11 hours to fly on assuming no delays, from Frankfurt to San Francisco. 11 hours, you doze off and you wake up and, oh gosh, there's still 8.5 hours to go. Oh, yeah. But, there is no time. We make time. We perceive time differently depending on where our consciousness is. And Nirmala was describing this effort to uplift our consciousness, or as Christ says in the reading, to lift your gaze and see that the fields are white to harvest already. That whiteness is here at the point between the eyebrows. That's the divine light. We gaze up into it. And we tend to think, and Master even gives us a sort of a metric in the Autobiography of a Yogi. He's talking about how one kriya is worth a year of natural spiritual evolution. And he tallies out, it takes about 1 million years of natural, good, healthy spiritual evolution in order to refine God. And so, you do the math, how many years does it take to do 1 million kriyas? And, you sort of count it up and you get this whole numerical scheme spread out in your mind. And it's now. It's always now. It's still just now. And it's not about numbers. It's about the process of making the effort. It's not about time making the effort. It's about doing the effort now. And in the Bible, pray unceasingly. The advice, pray unceasingly, is given to us. There's I heard a very interesting story about this, pray unceasingly, and this comes from our trip just recently in Russia. And one of the devotees there had visited an Orthodox monastery in which some of the monks had kept silence for decades, or 10, 15 years at any rate. And then their service to people after this discipline was to just give advice, just talk with people a little bit. And so I heard the story of one of these monks who one of the ladies had gone and visited and had a conversation, and she was not raised in the Orthodox tradition, did not have anything particularly to sort of incline her to think, okay, this guy's really got something. But she said, I could look in his eyes and I could hear in his voice, this is someone who knows what he's talking about. And he was talking about learning to pray unceasingly. And, well, how do you go about praying unceasingly? You've got phone calls and you've got kids to deal with and you've got bills to pay and you've got, that hospital thing that's doctor visit, whatever. I mean, there's just endless stuff you have to deal with in this world. How the heck are you going to pray unceasingly? I love the advice that he gave. He said, start with 30 seconds. Start with 1 minute. Just about anybody. You can brush your teeth for a minute or two. You can pray for a minute or two. You can, anybody can pretty well do that if they choose to do it. He said, do it once a day. And then after a while, do it twice a day. And grow from there. Grow in these little small increments. But here's the interesting part, is that there comes a point, there comes a time, and we saw this with Swamiji. And for Swamiji, it came up in an interesting way, because someone asked him once if there was a prayer that we should, all of us, pray at some point. It might have been part of the Sevaka order, it might have been some other thing, some other context that it came up. And, this person was asking, Swamiji, is there something that you would like us to orient ourselves toward in terms of prayer? Swami's answer was amazing. Just so often I would see him just sail way up over the mountains. He said, it's been a long time since I prayed with words. And think about that. So often we think, okay, well, so I say the Lord's Prayer, Our Father, which art in heaven, hallowed be thy name, tum-tum-tum-tum. You go through this little, or you say the rosary, or you say whatever prayer you learned, come Lord Jesus, be our guest, and let this food to us be blessed, amen, which, as kids it was like just, blah, 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 let's get to the meal. It's time, I'm hungry, let's go. We don't want to get caught up in all of this. But when the prayer becomes your heartbeat, when the prayer becomes your breath, when the prayer becomes the very calling of your soul, you don't have to wonder if it's going to be ceasing or unceasing. It's all the time. It's 24/7. And basically what this monk was telling her is, yes, of course you can do it. Yes, you have to want to do it and you have to work at it. It's not like it's just going to happen automatically. If you spend your whole day watching game shows on television, it's going to be a little harder to pray unceasingly. You have to get to an environment, you have to create an environment where that is possible and doable and desirable. Yes, of course, those things are there, but it's entirely doable. Because it's our nature to want that upliftment, to want that more, that something more, that calling. I want to tell a little story of my dad in honor of Father's Day. Dads often get the job of sort of looking out, looking to the future, looking to the, how you're going to pay for college and how you're going to, whatever, all of those far-reaching things. But dads also get the job of doing some of the less pleasant things around the house or at the awkward times. And I remember, this is not so much from the heart, but this particular case for my dad and me, there's a very heartfelt connection. And when I was about maybe 11 or 12, in my church that I was growing up in, around Easter time, they did a vigil. They decided to do a prayer vigil from Easter Friday night, Good Friday night, until Easter morning, sunrise service at 6 in the morning, which meant that every hour was split up in 3 parts, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes. So there were lots of opportunities, like more than 100 chances for people. If they wanted to come into the church and pray for 20 minutes, they could do so. Well, now, of course, you think the hours between midnight and 5 or 6 in the morning are not necessarily going to be the most popular hours. I mean, who's going to go in there at 1:30 in the morning or 3:15 in the morning or whatever, especially on Easter Sunday morning when you might be going back for the sunrise service, 2 or 3 hours later. I mean, it's like it's going to completely mess up your night. And so, those times tended to go unclaimed, except that the pastors would fill in. They were like the stopgap. They would take up any moment that nobody picked, they would pick, so that by the time the vigil began, every single slot was filled. Well, my dad and I made a point of picking somewhere around 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the morning on Easter Sunday morning, and we would go to the church, get up in the middle of the night, go to the church, pray for 20 minutes, and come home. I cannot say that they were always the deepest and best prayers ever. And frankly, we didn't really know meditation, and so it was a little challenging to keep the mind from just going hither and thither. But that connection, and we have done that now. We have had an Easter Sunday morning prayer vigil. Now it's a half hour, for more than 40 years now. And depending on, which time zone I was in, maybe I was 10 hours ahead, maybe I was 12 hours ahead, whatever. We would organize it in such a way that we could do it at the same time. And that it's just once a year, and it's just a half hour out of a year. It's not a very big deal in a way, but that repetition over the process of years brings a depth and a closeness and a sweetness that is very special. Make a tradition in your own life, in one way or another. Find and take the opportunity to draw closer. It's not about how many steps it takes to get to God. It's about taking the step in front of you and taking the next step in front of you. It's the process of taking steps. It's not the question of how many of them, but the process that is where you find it's now. I'll close by, this is a very odd example, but taken from the very first Star Wars movie that came out back in 1977 or 79 or whatever it was. And at the end of the movie, the critical moment, the big Death Star is coming around the corner and it's about to obliterate the planet with the little rebel group, and that, bad things are about to happen. And these little guys are going to the Death Star with their little spaceships, and they're trying to, stop the Death Star from coming. And just at the critical moment, Darth Vader, the big bad guy, is about to, he's got his target lock on the hero in the story. And he says the fateful words, "I have you now." And just at that moment, his spaceship gets knocked flying and he can't, pull the trigger and, kill off the hero, and the hero does his job, and it's all good. Well, memorize those words. I have you now. Say those words to God. Let that be your prayer if you feel to, but even if it's not a prayer, just simply realize that it's now. It's here. It's not in the distant future, a million kriyas from now, or a million miles from now, or a million whatevers from now. It's right here and right now. As long as and as much as we make that effort to lift up our consciousness, Christ will come to us, Master will come to us. They will be with us, they will live with us, and they will show, more importantly in a way, they will show us how to live in this world, how to take on the challenges that we face in the right way so that that prayer can become unceasing